This presentation is meant to prepare you for your discussion board due this week and for 3 subsequent discussion boards. But as we'll talk about, these principles are foundational to critical thinking and good writing. They're especially important for the work of the apologist, who isn't just sharing arguments, but is seeking to persuade and to share the good news of the gospel with people. That task requires meeting them where they are, understanding how they think and what matters to them, and humbly entering into conversations. Summary and analysis can be important first steps for this work. In an excellent article on Biola's website, David Horner advocates for what he calls humble apologetics. This approach runs counter to the caricature of apologists as dogmatic, abrasive, aggressive. These are probably pitfalls of the apologetic endeavor, given that it's meant to defend the faith and present arguments that are not exactly popular in our contemporary moment. But of course, these attitudes won't help much if our goal is to persuade, and they can do real harm to our witness as Christians. What we need is an apologetics aligned with our faith, one that follows our calling and leaves the results to the Holy Spirit. I think, too, our apologetic work should remind us that we have much to learn ourselves, and that listening to others, even those who don't share our faith or worldview, can sharpen our understanding of God in this world. Summary and analysis can be avenues by which we better learn to listen and show respect to others. These tasks can also provide ways for us to better understand and hone our responses. By looking closely at someone's argument in order to summarize or to analyze it, we are unsettled from our own perspective. We put ourselves into the other person's thought processes. This is sometimes called reading as believer, meaning to read another person's writing sympathetically, to find out what's right with it, and to affirm what can be affirmed, to see how it works and fits together. This does not preclude seeing flaws, but it reshapes our response to those flaws, or at least it can and should reshape our response. We view ourselves as advocates of the person with whom we're engaging in order for both of us to seek truth. Additionally, it demonstrates respect for the other person and shows them that you're interested in what they have to say, and not simply what you yourself have to say in response. It acknowledges their wealth of experience and background, values their freedom of conscience, and foregrounds the relationship over the argument. It helps us personally remember that we're seeking to win people and not simply arguments. A summary, as dictionary.com explains, is a comprehensive and usually brief abstract, recapitulation, or compendium of previously stated facts or statements. That's a simple definition that belies the difficulty of producing a summary, which can be challenging. However, the more practice you have in writing summaries, the easier it gets. Here are a few pointers that as you think about what you're aiming for in these summaries. First of all, a summary should be objective. Anyone who reads the original text should agree that the summary fairly and accurately represents the author's message. This goes back to the respect and listening points that I brought up on the previous slide. You demonstrate your credibility even if you disagree with an argument by representing it fairly. Very little is gained by slanting someone else's argument or by misrepresenting it. All that does is drive a further wedge between you and your interlocutor. In fact, doing so might very well end the conversation. You want to be sure that you're addressing what someone said and not what you think they said or what others in society or culture are saying. Taking the argument on its own terms is key here, really focusing on what the person says and how it all fits together. A summary is also all-encompassing yet brief. Every main point should be included, with nothing essential to the original message omitted. Details and evidence are not necessary and, if included, would turn the summary into a paraphrase. The challenge, of course, is determining what is central and what is supporting, and summaries can be of varying lengths with varying number of details or support. What you are looking for when summarizing is what's core, what holds everything together. Isolating and rewording that is your goal. A summary is also exclusionary. It doesn't include any outside or additional information, only what's actually found in the original text. This can be challenging as well, especially for someone who is well-read or immersed in a given culture. Sometimes those associations or elements of other arguments can creep in, but that muddies the waters and suggests to your interlocutor that your attention is elsewhere. Being disciplined to stay on track with the argument in front of you is crucial to gaining your interlocutor's trust and demonstrating your own credibility. As I mentioned before, in order to summarize well, you'll want to identify the central claim of the argument before you. That becomes clear as you read through and ask yourself what holds everything together. If it's the core, all the different pieces will tie back to it. You might read through paragraph by paragraph and jot down some notes about what each paragraph is doing or saying. Ask yourself if the paragraph you're currently reading is supporting or explanatory, if it offers evidence or elaboration, and importantly, what it offers evidence and elaboration for. You'll find the most helpful elements of the argument in the introduction and conclusion. Those set up the argument and usually recap it. The topic sentences, too, of each paragraph should be helpful. I would strongly recommend trying to outline the essay in order to get a sense of what levels each section is at and how the different parts fit together. Analysis builds on what you discovered through summarizing the argument. Once you know what the author is saying, you can consider how he or she says it and discuss the significance or implications of that presentation. Analysis itself means to break something down to its parts and to focus on at least one of the parts to see how it contributes to the whole. So, for example, if you're analyzing a short story, you might consider how the central conflict and its resolution highlights the story's central concerns. Or if you're analyzing a song, you might focus on how the tempo supports the lyrics. Or if you're analyzing a painting, you might think through how the lines draw the viewer's eyes to important images in the frame. Basically, analysis is an interpretation of sorts. It gets you to consider the why or the effect of the content that you uncovered through analysis, or perhaps the presentation of that content. It still relies on evidence, so you must point your reader back to the aspects of the article that you're analyzing to back up and support your claim, but it adds another layer to that evidence, your own understanding or explanation of it. There are many, many elements of arguments that you can analyze. You can consider the tone, the types of evidence drawn on, the way in which the author presents him or herself, the appeals to the audience, the way that the material is organized, and many more. What I would suggest with this discussion board assignment is to zero in on what stands out to you on first reading. You will probably need to revisit the argument as you write your analysis, but if it's something that you notice right away, that will give you a good foothold for later investigations. One way to ensure that you're writing analysis and not merely summarizing is to rely on strong analytical verbs that link the elements in the argument to your claim about the significance or purpose of these elements. Some of the helpful ones that you might use are underscores, highlights, emphasizes. I have these here on the screen. An example of how to do this: in Alice Walker's everyday use, the mother's description of her daughters reflects their varying knowledge and appreciation of their heritage. So the description of the daughters is something that's summary, it's details in the story. The varying knowledge and appreciation of their heritage is what you're understanding those details to mean. Summary and analysis work together naturally. Summary focuses on what you are reading, while analysis asks how it works. Analysis is more like an argument that you put forth, but it's solidly grounded in the evidence from the essay itself, even if it goes beyond the surface of that argument. It looks for implications, but it is still very focused on the essay and conveying its significance to your reader. Both of these are crucial steps before evaluating and responding to be sure that you really and thoroughly understand something. In this class, you'll be writing summary and analysis of different essays and chapters from the Telling Tales book and the God is Great book. Here's the prompt for your initial thread. For one of the chapters assigned this week, you will succinctly summarize the argument put forth. Try to stick to 150 to 200 words. That's going to be a hard stricture to meet, but it's crucial to the assignment to try to get to the heart of what the essay is saying. Then you'll analyze how the argument is being made in your remaining 350 to 400 words. You're going to write 2 of these summary analysis on God is Great chapters and 2 on telling tales throughout the first 4 weeks of the class. Possibilities for your analysis include some of the following. You're not going to have space to cover all of these, so you'll want to narrow your focus to 1 to 2 elements. What assumptions are at work? What are the premises of the arguments? What's the conclusion? What comparisons or contrasts are deployed? What cause-effect relationships? Those kinds of things. The sample, I think, should really help. This sample is included in the Blackboard shell of the Apologetics 5310 course. It's a summary and analysis of the introduction of William Lane Craig and Chad Meister's God is Great, God is Good book, and helps you get a sense of what you're aiming for in these posts. Notice that the first paragraph summarizes the introduction. It's 151 words, so it fits within the parameters of that 150 to 200. Note that it emphasizes what Craig and Meister are arguing and what they say their plan for the book is. To that end, the subjects of the sentences are all either Craig and Meister or the essays themselves. It's very clear from the summary here that this is Craig and Meister's work, not mine. I'm merely articulating what they are trying to represent in their work. The next paragraph is the opening of the analysis. There's another paragraph that we'll look at on the next slide. Altogether, this analysis is 389 words. Note that it focuses not on what Chad and Meister overtly say, but on how they say it. It emphasizes objective elements. In this paragraph's case, the negative commentary from the New Atheists about religion, and consider how that fits into their overall plan as laid out in this introduction. What I noticed when I was working on this about that use of the New Atheist's own words is that it underscores the confidence that the authors have in Christianity in the face of these challenges. Note that this analysis incorporates evidence from the essay to back up the conclusions that I draw. I'll give you a minute to look at that before moving on. This is the second and final paragraph of the analysis of the sample, summary analysis. Notice that the analysis is very clearly organized here. Each paragraph focuses on a specific aspect of the essay. And that might be a good way for you to lay out your own analysis, break it up into 2 smaller paragraphs. It would help you kind of keep your points on topic. In this second paragraph, I talk about the second benefit of allowing the New Atheists to speak for themselves, that Chad and Meister's readers can see firsthand what they are saying about their arguments, the arguments that are included in the essay collection. Note that the overall analysis is focused on one element of the introduction, the use of the New Atheist's own words, but I discuss it in 2 different ways. One, again, that shows what they mean by the negative commentary of the New Atheist, and the second, how that shows their confidence in the truths of Christianity. Doing something like this can keep your analysis more unified and succinct, but you could also focus on 2 separate elements. Most likely you'll find some point of connection between them, though. Notice here, too, you have a bibliography entry. To create that bibliographic entry, check out your Turabian handbook. Your responses to your peers' posts will help you further hone your summary and analysis skills, as you'll be asked to consider the strengths of the summary that your peer provided and to think through other ways of analyzing the original chapter. Completing this and reading through what others say about your work will get you in better practice for summary and analysis. I want to leave you with some final thoughts, both philosophical and practical, in not only doing the summary analysis, but what you're kind of aiming for with this engagement. So that summary analysis really is going to be key, but you want to sort of think a little bit bigger too. So here's some thoughts. Strive not to impose your own assumptions and conclusion on the author. Leave room for what the author is saying to make his or her own case rather than foisting your perspective or pet concerns onto the reading. So, for example, as biblical scholars say, your goal is going to be exegesis when you engage with somebody else's work, not eisegesis, not bringing something in or smuggling something in. Be careful not to generalize what you know of the author from other work, whether you have positive impressions or negative impressions. Take this particular argument on its own terms. As you read, be discerning. Ask hard questions of the author and text, not just easy ones. You probably won't want to do this for the summary analysis, but going forward after that, you'll want to extend and think through and engage and wrestle with it. Don't simply uncritically accept claims that are being made. Substantively assess them. Embrace the Socratic method while you're really engaging and probing a text. In your effort to understand the details, don't lose the big picture of the overall argument. Kind of think through, how does this particular section fit with the bigger point that the author is making. Avoid domestication of the author's ideas. Faithfully represent the argument at hand without watering it down to fit an agenda. Remember, challenge and charity are not inconsistent. We can and must engage with a critical mind, not a critical heart. Aim to be both charitable and honest while reading. Above all, and especially for this program, really know your theological convictions and muster them as you read and engage with another person's argument. Proper and firm grounding in the truth is crucial to be able to engage with something but avoid being at the mercy of every wind of teaching, as Ephesians 4 lays out.